A $10 grocery video used to feel like a clever challenge. In 2026, it feels like something else too. It feels like a warning. Because when people search for what $10 of groceries buys now, they are not just looking for dinner ideas. They are looking for proof. Proof that food can still be stretched. Proof that they are not the only ones standing in a grocery aisle doing silent math. Proof that the pressure they feel is real. And that matters, because this is not a recipe video. It is not a blame video either. If your grocery trips feel tighter than they used to, that is not because you suddenly became bad with money. The system changed around you. Prices changed. Package sizes changed. The value of a small budget changed. Even the meaning of cheap changed. So today, we are going to look at what a $10 grocery budget really means now. Why these videos keep going viral. What those tiny baskets usually leave out. And how to protect your money without pretending scarcity is normal. And if you have ever stood in front of a shelf trying to decide whether one more item is worth the total at checkout, you already know why this conversation matters. Because the grocery cart is not just a cart anymore. For a lot of people, it is a stress test. Let's start with the part that has changed the most. A few years ago, a $10 grocery challenge could still look like a neat little experiment. You might have been able to grab a couple of basics, stretch a few meals, and still feel like you got something usable. Not luxurious, not abundant, but usable. Now, in 2026, $10 does not behave the same way. It does not go as far. It does not buy as much variety. And it does not buy the same breathing room. That is the quiet shift people feel before they can even explain it. The total is small, but the choices feel much tighter. You are no longer asking, what do I want to buy? You are asking, what can I still afford to leave the store with? That is a very different question. And when you watch a $10 grocery haul video now, you are usually seeing a basket built around survival logic, not comfort logic. That basket is often built from the cheapest structure available. Starches, eggs, beans, rice, tortillas. Maybe a few low-cost vegetables or fruit, if the price is right. The foods that stretch. The foods that fill. The foods that can be repeated. But the things that disappear first are just as important. Variety disappears. Convenience disappears. Freshness gets squeezed. And balance becomes harder to maintain without extra planning. That is why these videos can look impressive on the surface while hiding a very strict set of trade-offs underneath. A tiny budget can produce a basket. But that basket may not produce a week of satisfying meals for every household. It may not fit children with different preferences. It may not fit someone who needs more protein. It may not fit someone who is tired, working long hours, or dealing with limited cooking equipment. This is where a lot of people get quietly misled. They see a $10 haul and think the challenge is the price. But the real challenge is everything the camera does not linger on. How much pantry food was already there? How much time was available to cook from scratch? How much leftover food from earlier meals was being relied on? How much repetition the person filming was willing to accept? Because if you strip away the presentation, cheap grocery content often depends on a hidden support system, not always a dramatic one. Sometimes it is just one can of this, half a bag of that, a freezer item from last week, a household that can tolerate repetition, or one person who is willing to eat very simply so the numbers work. That matters because a lot of viewers compare their real life to a highly compressed version of someone else's real life. And that is where guilt starts creeping in. A viewer may look at a budget basket and think, why can't I make this work? But that is the wrong question. A better question is, what conditions made that basket possible, and do those conditions match mine? That change in question is powerful. It protects people from turning a system problem into a personal failure. And it also explains why these videos keep getting watched. Because they answer a feeling before they answer a meal. When people are nervous about prices, they do not always search for recipes. They search for reassurance. They want to know whether the store is still manageable. They want to know whether somebody else saw the same price on eggs, the same jump on milk, the same small package for the same money. They want to know if their surprise is justified. In other words, they are not always asking, what should I cook? They are asking, what can I still afford without getting hurt by the receipt? That is a very different emotional need. And it is one reason the $10 grocery format has so much power. It gives people a script for uncertainty. It says, here is what a tiny budget looks like. Here is what a real cart can become. Here is what you can expect when money is tight. That can be useful. But it can also be misleading if you forget that a viral haul is not the same thing as a stable household plan. A viral haul is built to be seen. A household plan is built to be lived. And living with food is where the hidden trade-offs show up fast. If you keep chasing the absolute cheapest option every week, you may end up with meals that repeat too often. You may spend more time combining scraps than actually eating well. You may buy items that look cheap per package but are not cheap per meal. You may walk past foods that would have saved time, reduced waste, or lasted longer, simply because the sticker price scared you more than the full picture. That is where consumer awareness starts to matter. Because the cheapest basket is not always the smartest basket. Now here is the middle of the story that a lot of grocery videos never say out loud. A $10 basket can look disciplined, even admirable. But discipline is not the same thing as sustainability. Sustainability means the plan can hold up next week. It means the meals are repeatable. It means the household can keep eating without constant damage control. It means the budget is not creating more waste somewhere else, like extra trips to the store, spoiled food, or buying the wrong cheap item because there was no room to think. That is why ultra-low grocery content can be so emotionally complicated. It is not just entertainment. It is evidence of how hard people are having to work to make normal life fit inside a tighter financial box. Take a second and ask yourself this. What is a grocery video really selling? Is it dinner? Not always. Often, it is reassurance. It is the feeling that somebody else understands the pressure. It is the sense that you are not alone when you stand there comparing two similar items and trying to decide which one hurts less. It is the promise that there is still some form of control left. And that is why this genre is so easy to misread. If you only look at the haul itself, you miss the emotional contract behind it. The viewer is not just there to learn what was bought. The viewer is there to feel less shocked by what the store now demands. That is a powerful thing. But once you understand that, you can also stop giving the video more authority than it deserves, because reassurance is useful. But it should not become normalization. Just because a tiny basket goes viral does not mean the pressure behind it is healthy, ordinary, or acceptable. So let's turn this into something practical. If you want to protect your money in a harder grocery market, the first move is simple. Track the items that keep showing up on your receipt. Not every item. The repeat offenders. The few foods you buy again and again because they anchor your meals. Those are the items where price changes matter most. If the same thing is suddenly costing more every few weeks, that is not a feeling. That is a pattern. Once you know the pattern, you can stop guessing. The next move is to build around a short list of reliable staples instead of reacting to every sale, every trend, and every tempting display. That does not mean eating the same thing endlessly. It means having a base you trust, a short list of foods that actually work in your home. Foods you can combine in different ways. Foods that do not create much waste. Foods that can survive a busy week. That kind of list protects you from impulse buying, because you are no longer filling the cart with one-off items that look clever in the store but do not help at home. And then there is unit price. This one sounds small, but it is one of the most important consumer habits you can build. The sticker price can fool you. A smaller package can look cheap until you compare the price per ounce, per pound, or per kilo. A larger package can look expensive until you see that it gives you more food for the money. That tiny label on the shelf is often where the real decision is hiding. If you want to protect your budget, do not just ask what is cheapest right now. Ask what is cheapest in actual use. That one question can save you from paying more for less. And the final move is waste reduction. Not in a trendy, polished way. In a plain, honest way. Buy food you are realistically going to use. Plan around what can be repeated. Use leftovers before they become invisible. Keep an eye on what is sitting at the back of the fridge. A lot of grocery money gets lost not because the food was expensive, but because the household was too pressured, too busy, or too exhausted to use what was already there. That is not a moral failure. It is a pressure problem. And pressure changes behavior. So the goal is not to shame yourself into perfection. The goal is to design a system that wastes less of your money. That is a very different mindset. It also gives you more control than chasing the lowest possible number ever could. Because control is not just about spending less. Control is about knowing where the money is leaking. It is about understanding which items are actually worth it. It is about recognizing when a cheap-looking basket is really an expensive form of stress. And that brings us to the bigger lesson. The reason ultra-low grocery videos are so popular in 2026 is not because people suddenly became obsessed with tiny challenges. It is because a lot of households feel squeezed, and they want evidence that their experience is real. They want proof that the checkout total is not imagined. They want to know that other people are noticing the same pressure. They want to feel prepared before they walk into the store. That is why these videos hit so hard. But the healthiest response is not to romanticize the squeeze. It is to see it clearly. Once you see it clearly, you can make better decisions inside it. You can compare prices with more confidence. You can spot when a bargain is fake. You can tell the difference between a useful, frugal habit and a survival habit that is being treated like a lifestyle trend. And that difference matters. Because a survival habit is not something to admire blindly. It is something to understand. A useful habit is something you can keep. A survival habit is something you use when you have to. That is the full pattern here. The $10 grocery video is not just a clever internet format. It is a sign that consumers are under pressure, that small budgets now require more strategy than they used to, and that people are searching for a way to feel less exposed in the aisle. But the answer is not guilt. It is awareness. It is noticing what is really happening to value. It is refusing to confuse scarcity with normal. It is building a shopping plan that respects your money, your time, and your household. So the next time you see a tiny grocery haul online, do not just ask whether you could copy it. Ask what it leaves out. Ask what conditions made it possible. Ask whether it is actually helping someone or simply making a hard situation look neat on camera. That question will make you a smarter shopper and a calmer one. If this breakdown helped you see grocery pressure a little more clearly, stay with the Consumer Crisis Report. We look at the patterns behind everyday spending so you can protect your money without panic, shame, or guesswork. Because in 2026, the goal is not to pretend prices are fine. The goal is to understand the system well enough that it stops surprising you.